In the book of James, chapter number 5, verse 16, it says, "The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much." And that's really the biography of the man David Brainerd. If you could summarize his life in a few words, he was a righteous man who was effectively used by God through fervent prayer. When you read his diaries, you see a man bleeding in his desire for the salvation of the Native Americans. It is said that sometimes he would kneel in the snow, and when he prayed with so much heat and so much fervor and so much desire that the snow would melt around him. He was a man of fervent prayer. I want to read you some of his quotes. He said this: "1 hour with God infinitely exceeds all the pleasures of this lower world." He said, "I love to live on the brink of eternity." Sometimes he would pray and he felt as if he could just fall into eternity. And that's the type of man he was. He said this: "I long to be a flame of fire, continually glowing in the divine service and building up of Christ's kingdom to my last and dying breath." This was the man David Brainerd. As your bulletin says, he was born in Connecticut on April 20th, 1718. And early on in his life, he experienced tremendous grief. He lost his father at the age of 9. He lost his mother at the age of 14. But instead of these things breeding bitterness in the heart of David Brainerd, they pushed him towards God. And they were actually used in his conversion. And after Brainerd was converted, he felt called to the ministry, and he enrolled in the University of Yale. And in his third year at Yale, he was expelled. During that time, God was sending a powerful movement that we know of as the Great Awakening. And just like any revival does, it always divides people. And there were those who were criticizing the revival, and one of those people was one of his professors. And he was asked about this professor, and he said that the professor had no more grace than this chair. And for that, he was expelled. But God had something greater for David Brainerd than Yale could give him. David Brainerd had to go to a different university. It's called the University of the Backside of the Wilderness. It's the same one that Moses went to and every other great man of God. And God used this time to isolate him and to strip him of everything that he had learned to lean upon. And he learned to pray. This time was used to teach David Brainerd how to pray. And during this time, God called David Brainerd to be a missionary to the Native Americans. And he realized that this work was greater than anything he could do. And so he pushed him to pray. He realized that the Native Americans could not be saved by eloquence. They could not be saved by intellect. They could only be saved through the power of God. And so he realized that he needed to pray. The reason most of us don't pray is because we're only attempting things that we can do. It's only once we get outside of our own abilities and we get into the realm of the impossibility that we will begin to pray. David Brainerd surrendered his life to be a missionary to the Native Americans. All throughout his ministry to the Native Americans, he was plagued with tuberculosis, and he experienced tremendous suffering and tremendous hindrances, but he continued to pray. And he prayed and he sought the Lord for the salvation of the Native Americans until God came down and he sent a revival in the midst of the Native Americans. David Brainerd only died, as Pastor said, at the age of 29. But like we know, it's not how long you live, but what kind of life you live that counts. And so while you're reading the life of David Brainerd, the one thing you can learn is what God can accomplish through prayer. And so I want to leave you with this challenge. Will you be a faithful man and a faithful woman of prayer? Thank you.